we had this weird thing happen in our culture where people would celebrate funding rounds and you'd see everybody high-fiving how much funding they raised, not how much money they were making, not their profitability. They got excited about the fact that they raised $20 million. Like, good, that's good. How are you going to turn that $20 million into a profitable organization? How are you actually going to make money? Transitioning your investment capital into an actual cash flow is like, hey, how are you planning on doing that? The burn rate can only go for so long before you actually have to be profitable. It's musical chairs. Eventually the music stops.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. This is episode 52. I don't do this alone. My co-host Adam Burke sitting across from me. Adam, how are you doing?
Good, Paul. Excited to be here. We are closing out the first quarter, believe it or not, on 2023. It is the end of March, last week. Get your orders in. I hope you're having a fantastic quarter. Excited to be here.
We all did it. We made it to the end of the quarter. Adam, I almost didn't make it here today because over the weekend, I took some pictures on a farm and almost assaulted by a cow that was the angriest cow I've ever met. Of course, though, with my quick reflexes, I survived, and I'm here to tell the tale.
That's good. I ate a lot of cow over the weekend. We had the family in town. We barbecued a lot. That was good. The universe balances out. We had the crew here over the weekend, so it was a good time.
Nice. That's awesome. Let's get into it. So we have some good stories. As always, if you want to read the articles, they are all in the description. First one comes from Channel Company, crn.com. There are way too many cybersecurity startups. Some won't survive a recession. I'm not laughing at somebody losing their job. That's horrible. I am laughing at the title of the article. There's just way too many of them. As economic conditions worsen, some security startups will have to face a stark reality. The market cannot absorb all the innovation. Checkpoint Software Technologies co-founder and CEO Gil Shwed tells CRN. So what did you think of the article, Adam?
It's interesting because I think we made the observation. I'm not sure if it was on the incident report during a couple of our early episodes, or maybe back when we were doing the video segments that we had. I think we titled it Spilling the IT. I forget what it was, but we talked about going to RSA previously in 2019 and in the years before that, where it was so crowded at those events. And we do events all over the country. Every sales rep loves some good booth time at expos. And it was interesting at RSA, the last time I went, they were selling, if you've never been to the Mondavi Center, the Macovy Center in San Francisco, Marconi. I'm totally butchering some famous historical figure and relevant to San Francisco. Anyways, they were selling space in the hallways, not just the floors of the expo hall, but in the hallways. There were so many vendors out there. I mean, so many different security vendors. It was bound to happen. There's just a ton of different capabilities out there, and only so many are going to get adoption.
And do you think a lot of them are going to get acquired? Do you think they're just going to liquidate?
Well, I mean, so the holy grail, we talked about this when Tim was on, is for private equity. Private equity got very involved in the security space because it tells a good story, right? People need cybersecurity. There's a lot of people getting breached out there. People are spending money on it. So private equity flows to where there's money. I think people are just going to run out of burn. They're just going to run out of runway with their Series A through D funding cycles. They're just going to go away. The bones might get picked over by the larger organizations, bigger firms, larger firms like, Telma Bravo and those guys are going to pick up the big ones. But Andreessen Horowitz and those guys, they're probably going to pick over the bones of relevant pieces of tech. But I think a lot of them are just going to run out of runway once their private equity funding and venture capital goes away.
One of the quotes from the article, which I enjoyed the most, is, in other words, when some security vendors are forced to turn a profit to stay in business, they may be unable to, which does seem like a real important cornerstone of business, being able to turn a profit.
You'd think so, but we had this weird thing happen in our culture where, and you probably saw it on LinkedIn, you probably saw it if you're participating in social media or any of the, the funding kind of culture out there. people would celebrate funding rounds, and you'd see everybody high-fiving how much funding they raised, how much money they had in the war chest, not how much money they were making, not their profitability. That's just,
That's
that's
a
having
great
like,
point. That's a great
that's
point. I
having
never
like,
thought about that before.
yeah, I saw it I saw it for probably the last 5 or 6 years. I talked to people about it and everyone kind of looked at me funny, but it was, and even in small things, it's kind of like this Shark Tank mentality. Like they got excited about the fact that they raised $20 million. Like, good, that's good. Now, how are you gonna turn that $20 million into a profitable organization? It was kind of like horrible analogy, but there's a great South Park that talks about back in the early days of South Park. It was the underwear gnomes. I don't know if you know the underwear gnome story, but it basically is the idea of there's second grade kids in South Park, and this kid named Butters, he gets in trouble because he keeps losing his dungarees or whatever, and his underwear. And it's this whole storyline about how these gnomes will steal it, and that's their whole business plan is they steal underwear and then profit. It's like, well, what's the in between part? Like, how are you actually going to make money? And a lot of these guys that you heard out there, and people and organizations, they were so excited about their funding rounds, but transitioning your investment capital into an actual, net cash flow is like, hey, how you plan on doing that? The burn rate can only go for so long before you actually have to be profitable. It's musical chairs. Eventually the music stops, and it stopped for SBC, and that hurt that community. A lot of the venture capital folks and private equity and people that were in those organizations banked at SVB. And so that was kind of maybe the first domino to fall, but I think there might be a few more coming out.
Israeli email security vendor Siren announced on February 22nd that it would cease operations and pursue liquidation of its assets, and the 32-year-old publicly traded company cited current market conditions and associated challenges with raising additional capital, as well as its inability to find a buyer, going for 32 years. And they have a burn rate, and they're like, we can't raise additional capital to keep this going.
Yeah, there's a term, it came out about a year or two ago, and no one likes this kind of stuff. No one likes to be, because sometimes people will be like, oh, you're being anti-American, or you're being a downer, or blah blah blah. But it takes two parties to run markets, and you gotta have the pessimist out there as well as the optimist. You need both. And there's a concept out there called zombie corporations, and zombie corporations are people who have loaded up their balance sheet with so much debt that they need to continually refinance in order to basically maintain operations, because they're not profitable enough to service the entire debt load of their company, and they're dependent on low interest rate loans. And so they might look like huge companies. They might look like massive. I mean, they might employ hundreds or even thousands of people, but they're not turning a profit, right? Every new customer is costing them money, and they have to continually roll that debt over and over again. It's like and we've all had those neighbors who all of a sudden has a brand new boat, a nice BMW, maybe some other toys they can't necessarily traditionally afford. And we all kind of looking at each other like, I wonder how that happened. Well, they refinanced their house and they keep taking out equity. Well, that works great until the market corrects or the interest rates go up, and then it blows up. I think we're in the interest rate going up, and the fuse has been lit on a few of these people who are zombies.
So my neighborhood isn't filled with people who have new BMWs. A lot of retirees around here, Adam. My neighborhood is filled with people who love doing construction in their backyard. Every day, there is somebody else who is like laying concrete. It's a good concrete market right now. It's very interesting. It's very odd. Totally unrelated, but a hot tip: money in concrete. But I'm not licensed to give advice.
Buy CMEX or buy Home Depot or Lowe's. Good call.
Adam, how about all those big spenders using HELOCs?
Yeah, well, it's the same concept, right? It's just pulling equity or pulling cash out of the business or out of the home and buying stuff that, it's short term thinking. You don't necessarily want to do that with your business. And a lot of these organizations have unfortunately done that, and I think they're going to run out of runway pretty soon or get gobbled up. And we're seeing that.
This article was really interesting, and Schwed makes a point, which I didn't totally understand, and I wanted to run it by you. He said, but the fact remains that cybersecurity industry has gotten to a point where there has simply been too much innovation. What do you think he means by too much innovation? That there's just too many different products, but they're not diverse enough to stand out, or there's too many products and they're way too diverse and it's just too much for the market? I wasn't sure what he meant by too much innovation.
Well, I think that the too much innovation is the idea that with cybersecurity, and they talk a little bit about platform companies, right? So organizations that are large enough to offer a few different services. The problem is a lot of these vendors, I refer to them as vendors, they're kind of like the OEM or manufacturers. They need clients who are and partners who are committed enough to help them move the ball forward and kind of establish a base of operations, a base revenue. They need something, they need an install base, and they need partners. If you've ever played poker, there's a term called being pot committed, right? And if you're pot committed, it basically means that you have a significant amount of your resources. You have chips on the table. You're in a poker game. You have a significant amount of those chips in a given hand. You're pot committed to that hand. Maybe
it's a little sunk cost.
Yeah, you're involved. Like you're gonna see this one through, because the worst thing you can have happen when you're playing poker is you think you got the best hand on the table and you're gonna win, and then another card comes down on the river, which is the last card to fold, to come out before everyone shows their hand and does their final bet, and now all of a sudden you're not quite sure if you have the best hand, right? But the idea of being pot committed is it's really hard to walk away from the money you've already put in the middle of the pot. Right? You can't, because you might have to, someone might say, hey, in order to stay in, you got to put the rest of your money in, right? So there's so many of these vendors need their partners and their clients to be relatively pot committed to their service offering. You have to, that's why you get terms like, yeah, we're a Microsoft shop, or we're a Cisco shop, or we're a VMware shop, or, we're a Fortinet or a Palo Alto. These vendors are dependent on people kind of being pot committed. You get pot committed in different ways. You standardize on their product offering. You invest in training for your people in their product offering. You invest in training for your sales people to kind of carry their banner forward in that product offering. You get their attention. Gary Vaynerchuk, I always mess up his name. Gary V always talks about attention. And what these vendors are trying to do is get your attention. Well, there's 3,000 security vendors mentioned in this article. Only so many of them are going to get your attention.
I see. Okay.
Only so many of them are going to get enough attention to stay relevant. I mean, there's just too much. So some of them are going to have to go away or get absorbed into other companies.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the way I think it'll probably sort out, and the debt issue kind of is going to accelerate that.
So our next article comes from ChannelInsider.com. Expected MSP services, what all MSPs should offer. And there's a big list, from backup recovery services, data protection services, managed desktop services, cybersecurity, storage. There is a lot that this article says, hey, by the way, MSPs, you might want to consider doing this. Adam, are there any that you think companies should lean into?
I think you keep it really simple and you lean into the services that people are looking for your help with and looking to buy. I think a lot of, kind of back to that pot committed analogy, a lot of vendors are going to try to get organizations to lean into some services that might not necessarily be relevant, and they might be trying to create a market for it, right? So you see articles and things published all the time around different technologies, right? So SASE came out 4 or 5 years ago, and people started talking about that acronym. SD-WAN, was gonna change the world 8 years ago. You hear about DLP, you hear about cloud services, you hear about all sorts of different things, and there's different vendors and different motivations for pushing people towards different models. And I think it's really important for MSPs to remember that we're an MSP, right? We're a customer ourselves. We're a customer to the OEMs, to the suppliers, to the vendors. What's relevant for our business? How do we best support our customers, and how do we maintain the ability to help service them in the most flexible way? If you get too far, left or right down a certain track, you might be leaving some things on the table. There's always an opportunity cost, right? If you're going all in on MDR, maybe your consulting business is getting hurt. Your virtual CISO, or we run virtual security teams. Or if you go all in on this cloud storage array or this certain technology, maybe you're leaving some other things on the table. These are some great offerings here, the storage services, the network services. We're seeing a lot of growth in SD-WAN consolidated with security services. So I like their secure access service edge call out as well as their SD-WAN. But creating something new and taking it to market is difficult. I think it's best to, at least for us as an MSP, listen to what customers are asking for help with, and then figure out which vendors are going to help you deliver that.
This article is an acronym Hall of Fame. They have
yeah,
every possible thing that has been discussed in the last 5-8 years. And I think that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. Listen to what's needed and then fill that need.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to be first, but sometimes that's a dangerous position to be in too. A lot of these services and a lot of these practices are born out of each other, and getting comfortable with one can help you with another. We do capability overviews for clients all the time because Quest is, we're a system integrator and we touch all sorts of different things in IT, right? We do everything from physical infrastructure all the way through application development and advanced integration services. So there's a lot of different things we do, and sometimes clients kind of will silo us into one or two areas, but that's okay. We've been around about 42 years, and something I always say, one of the reasons we're very, very good at cybersecurity and incident response and recovery isn't because we built out that practice as a standalone, right? We didn't learn that, malware and ransomware and things are exploding and we better build a service offering around it. We came from the DR and business continuity background. So we had an organizational specialty that we built around helping people recover from disasters, helping people maintain business continuity, and helping people basically recover applications and access in the event it was lost. That skill set translated directly into cybersecurity incident response. And we had people ask us for help. Hey, can you help us recover? We got in trouble over here. And we said, yeah, we take this skill set and we grow into this one. And the reason we were in DR is because we invested in data centers. And we had customers who asked us for help in data centers. And the reason we, kind of backwards bolting here, the reason we got involved in data centers is because we had a client who we had provided hardware, software, and consulting services to as a value-added reseller for 20 years that trusted us, trusted our operations. They needed help moving their key infrastructure out of the floodplain. They had some critical infrastructure that was designated a floodplain after Hurricane Katrina, and they needed some help moving out of that. And that was because we had built out a practice around value-add reseller engagements and sourcing the appropriate product and not selling people shelfware, but selling people things that it could actually affect their business. So all of those services are all kind of interrelated. They all kind of support each other. Sometimes people think like, hey, when you're building an MSP, you got to do it all at once. No, you don't have to do it all at once. You got to kind of figure out where your customers are asking you for help and then do a good job. And then they're going to ask you for the next thing and the next thing. And eventually you build practices around your experiences. And that's how our MSP program and company has evolved, which is really exciting because it's always changing, it's always growing. As long as you're listening to people, you get to keep playing.
Adam, I'm a huge fan of literary classics, your Whitmans, your Hawthornes, your Faulkners. What we do is essentially, I'm going to cite a classic here, if you give a mouse a cookie. So you don't have to create everything at once, but eventually company's going to ask for a cookie and then they might ask for something else. So you go help them over there as well. So I think very similar to that.
That's a great analogy, Paul. That's a fantastic analogy. And I hate to burst your literary bubble, but about 2.5 years ago, when I was still cutting my own hair in the middle of COVID lockdowns, I actually did a children's book review on To Give a Mouse a Cookie and on LinkedIn and put it out there as a Friday book review. That's something I used to do to kind of talk to the channel about fun analogies, and you're exactly right.
Wow. So I'm like one of those comedians just stealing other people's jokes.
Yes, you and Carlo Mancina can hang out together later and steal jokes.
Oh boy. Okay. Are those videos still up? If people go to your LinkedIn page, are those videos still up?
They are. We can link one in the you can see my awesome do-it-yourself haircut during 2020. It was a nice buzz cut. It was great. Yeah.
Are you still reviewing children's books?
I haven't reviewed them in a while, but that might be something we could bring back. That could be fun. Ryan Boyk over at C3, one of our partners out of Michigan, every time I post anything on LinkedIn, he always is like, "When's the next book review, Burke?" So, like I owe Ryan a book review.
You got a fan base, Adam. The people demand more
And they want to
content.
see it. They want to see it. They do.
Yeah. Adam, I need more material. I got to steal something. I have nothing to steal right now. So put out some more content so I can steal something.
Will do.
Speaking of controversies, we're going to head over to Channel Futures. Now, please understand, we have no controversy with Channel Futures. Love that website. The controversies we speak of are in an article that focuses on all the developments in the channel in the last 12 months, all the controversies that have been happening. And there have been a lot of issues coming up. Adam, any of them stand out to you?
Well, it was interesting. The Avaya news was interesting, and the kind of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. That's kind of happened relatively quickly with them, and they're supposed to be coming out of it pretty quick as well. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, Avaya phone systems and their communication platform is huge. We invested in an organization that specialized in supporting those platforms, and so we've kind of grown out our Avaya practice, which was different. We've historically been kind of a Cisco on-premise and some UCaaS options from a support standpoint, and we grew out our Avaya skill set about 3 years ago, which has been good. It'll be interesting to see how they come out of that. It seems like the people who are holding debt on that company are going to be taking about a 20 to 30% haircut on their debt. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so many of these stories in the article are a little bit of a wait and see what develops. One of the things that I'm stunned about is all the layoffs. And I guess I shouldn't say stunned, but it's always disappointing to see. I just saw that Veeam had to let go of some people, and they're going to be dealing with some layoffs.
Yeah, that was a big one, and that's part of our ecosystem. We've been a Veeam Cloud Connect partner for coming up on 6-7 years now, and been reselling that platform for a long time. Sounds like they're reducing a little bit. They had a reduction in force. The thing about these layoffs is there's lots of talent available and lots of people who are looking for new organizations to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
You can shake the channel up a little bit, but at least from what I've seen, a lot of people are getting picked up, finding new roles. That's always good to see. But yeah, there has been some reduction, and Veeam was acquired by a private equity firm, and it's interesting. We talk about how people get paid and how people report numbers and make money. Some of their purchasing decisions and some of how they sell their offerings and track their sales reps' performance definitely changed. We were always kind of on different types of agreements as a MSP, but as a reseller and things like that, it seems like it's much more important for the venture capital folks that are involved. I think it's Elliott over there. They're much more focused on annual contract value.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of judged on annual contract value, which is different than multi-year or total contract value, right? So they're kind of looking more for like, what's this mean year to year? How many people do I have under subscription, and how are they evaluating that? So we'll see what happens next with them.
Speaking of let's see what happens next, Broadcom, who 500 years ago tried to acquire VMware, still trying to acquire VMware. Europe says, hey, Broadcom, we have some issues possibly with the acquisition. We should talk.
Yeah, those are some serious dollars there for that one. Is it saying that they halted the entire transaction, or what's it saying?
European regulators have expressed concerns over the acquisition. United Kingdom authorities said they fear Broadcom's purchase of VMware would make servers more expensive. They further plan to put the proposed acquisition under greater scrutiny via an in-depth inquiry unless Broadcom could address its concerns. So it just seems like a lot of threats and posturing, but probably not exactly what Broadcom was hoping for.
It looks like they have to make their decision by June 7th. Sure, there's some lobbyists out there who are getting some good retainers kicked in, and it'll get sorted out. I'm sure it'll get sorted out as efficiently as the free or somewhat free markets allow. So
Broadcom, VMware, Avaya, Veeam. What else is standing out for you?
Well, a big thing in our channel was the TBI, acquisition by AppDirect. That was a big one. I'm not sure who the publicist was for that one, but they're not talking to the right people, because this kind of is staying in the news. Usually they sort this kind of noise out pretty quick. But it sounds like they had some not so happy people over at TBI, which is tough. I'm sure there's always multiple sides to the story, but that handoff went a little rough with getting acquired by AppDirect. It's staying in the news flow right now. I see something about it like almost every other week from Channel Futures. I don't know why. I'm not sure what Shepstone did to Channel Futures or whatever, but that doesn't seem to be going away. Maybe it's just because a lot of people are talking about it. But it's interesting, this consolidation of the master agents and the technology distributors and brokers and things like that is we're seeing more and more. I'm starting to see people have different opinions about the different technology distributors. So I think we're going to have some guests on in the coming weeks that can talk to us a little bit about their perspective as individual subs and partners of the technology distributors. The distributors are kind of growing to such a big state that they're almost starting to act a little bit like carriers in their own right. I've heard stories, and this is completely unsubstantiated, but I've heard stories of like quota requirements and new partner requirements and things like that, which is one of the reasons a lot of people stopped having direct relationships with suppliers like, the AT&Ts and Lumens of the world. I think that's gonna be a topic of discussion for a big event that we're going to later this spring, which will be a lot of fun because a lot of things are changing. We're gonna be at Channel Partners, and I wanna give you this opportunity, Paul, to correct the record on the booth that we're gonna be at, doing some events and some training and things like that. I know we blew it on last week.
The correct booth number, you will find us at 1902. We are at 1902.
Yes, we are at 1902, and we'll be doing some cool training sessions there. We'll be meeting with channel partners. We'll be talking about what's happening with all the consolidation and new rules of engagement and all that kind of stuff. But it's gonna be fun. I mean, there's a lot happening in the channel. I'm really, really looking forward to that. The entire Quest team is going to be there with a lot of partners, so that's gonna be a good time.
So maybe a little podcast recording there.
Yeah, a little podcast recording, a couple live updates, a couple candid moments, interviewing people awkwardly on the showroom floor who are trying to avoid eye contact with us.
Adam, I've heard this thing of knowledge sessions. What is this knowledge session I hear so much about? I'm hearing good things. Adam, people are talking about these knowledge sessions.
Oh, well, so the knowledge sessions are going to be basically mini capability reviews of different offerings within Quest and why it's relevant to a partner and how it can help them with their business. So it can be around things like our cyber defense suite, our application development, our infrastructure services. They're going to be short little hits like, hey, here's what it is, here's how it helps you, here's why it's relevant to your customers, and we're giving away a lot of good stuff too.
And not just giving away knowledge, we're giving away actual things too, physical things.
Yes, physical and digital. Maybe an NFT or two.
Oh, wow. Maybe a Bored Ape. I was going to say, what are they going for now? $5?
I don't know. I sat next to a lady on my way back from Omaha last week. I was at a partner event with our friends over there at Complete Communications, and I had no idea the NFT thing was still as big as it was. And she proceeded to teach me all about it over about 2.5 hours of a flight.
Oh, and, no.
So she was a very nice lady, probably one of the nicest ladies I've ever met. But definitely was into NFTs, and I got a whole lesson on the whole program. I have much more knowledge about that than I ever did before. Very passionate person.
Were you asking questions, or were you giving subtle hints like, oh, perhaps this book in my lap is now my focal point, and she just was not taking the hint? Were you putting on ear pods and she's like, no, you must hear this, Adam. NFTs are the future.
It was actually a very fun conversation, and it was great. When I sat down, I had my earphones in.
Okay.
Probably for the first 20 minutes of our conversation. It was not necessarily picked up on, but I wasn't mad about it. She was a very nice lady. She was a chaplain's wife from the Air Force. Her husband was a colonel in the Air Force chaplain service, so couldn't have been a nicer woman. But yeah, as far as like the hint, as far as like, I've been at a customer event all day and talking to people all day and maybe just want to throw on the Netflix and watch a show. That was not in any way a possibility, but it was a great conversation. And it's really fun to talk to people who are outside the tech industry about what they're doing with technology. So I actually really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, because you see it from a new, unique perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking speeds and feeds all day, and she was talking about business applications for NFTs and how people can use them and the blockchain and how to get things minted, and there was a whole ecosystem that I have no clue about. It's always good to be be the dumbest person in the room every once in a while. It's a good thing. It's a good practice.
Speaking of Netflix, Adam, any recommendations for people out there, like looking for something new, different?
Succession, the new season, is a hot bag of garbage. So I'm not too happy about that one. Pretty bummed.
Oh
Love that
no!
show.
Oh, I was
Not
so looking
good.
forward to. Oh no!
Not good. Not good, man. Not good. Really bummed about it. But I love history, and there's a great like meathead history overview of the Ottoman Empire. I think it's Mahmud versus Vlad the Impaler. It's about the guy who actually is the historical origin story for Vlad Dracula. It's about the Ottoman Empire conquest with Wallachia, which is modern day kind of Romania area. It's a really cool like kind of meathead history documentary where you have actors, but then you have the narration that tells you actually the historical context of what you're watching. It's like a historical documentary for people with limited attention abilities.
That sounds great. I'll have to check it out.
Good show. It's a good one. Yeah.
This episode's gone a lot of places. And as we're wrapping up, a couple things. First, to the audience, thank you for listening. We're glad you're here. Adam, thank you for being here, sharing your insights. And again, stop by booth number 1902 and say hi to us.
1902 Channel Partners, May 1st through the 4th. Looking forward to it, everyone.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.